Hello, welcome, Jack and Joe show with Joe Sansom. It's sponsored by BetMate. And how are you, Joe?
Very well, thank you. I'm hoping that after some alterations that my lighting is slightly better this week and it's not scary stories that I tell in the dark. But I'm very well. I enjoyed Saturday's game. I think you did as well, Jack, despite, not winning. I think it was still really enjoyable and looking forward to talking about it today.
Yeah, Saturday was an interesting one. We're in the month of November now, and that means there's only two more games until the World Cup, Manchester City and
Yeah.
Manchester United. Saturday was an interesting game. I luckily was here with Dan Cook to talk about it on Quick Take. So I want your opinion on the game, what your thoughts were. I asked Dan, was it a point gained or two dropped? He said a bit of both. What do you think?
Yeah, I would edge towards a point gained. We were the better team. I thought that Everton, for the first 5-10 minutes of the game, started pretty strongly, actually. Maybe 5 minutes because they had a couple of chances, one where Robinson blocked. I haven't seen it on the highlights anywhere, but it looked a certain goal to me.
Gordon.
Gordon, who was disastrous, I thought, by the way. I thought he was awful. But anyway, then there was also the chance for Damari Gray, which stung the palms of Leno. We then had a spell where it just felt like we threw everything at Jordan Pickford early doors, and he saved it all, and he played really well. Through the rest of the game, I thought we still were by far the better side, had a couple more chances. The Ream header that dropped just wide is one of them. Mitrovic had a few in the second half, which I don't think were as clear-cut as Twitter would have you feel if you hadn't watched the game. There's a lot of people saying that he had a disastrous game. He didn't. He wasn't on top form, but there wasn't a sitter in my eyes that I would have banked on him scoring. I thought there were chances which on another day he might have done better with, but there was nothing where I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I wish Mitrovic scored that one. It was the complete opposite to me of the Wolves game, which is the only 0-0 we can compare it to this season, which I thought was dull as dishwater. And even though on the whole, in terms of chances created on the day, we got tonked. We had the penalty, which on another day we walk away with the 3 points. For this one, we had all the play, all the chances. But Everton on another day could have also walked away with the 3 points because they had a couple of chances as well. Could Mitrovic have seen red? Yes. Should we have had a penalty? Yes. Call it even. Don't mind.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little bit frustrating, Everton will be frustrated as well. The Mitrovic one happened first. So for me, point gained, move on, another good performance. Would I be feeling differently if we were, for example, in Wolves' position right now in the bottom three or Forest? Yes, because then the urgency is more there. But I think there's been a few games this season where, maybe we've only just edged it. For example, the one against, I don't know, let's say Brighton, for example, where there weren't many chances in the game. We've been the better team in this one, but we've drawn it. I'll take it. I'll move on. I've blabbered on for ages, Jack. What were your thoughts?
No, I said what I said on Sunday morning, and I think all that needs to be added to this is I'm just incredibly impressed with the amount of chances we're making against quality opposition. Yeah. I say quality opposition because every Premier League team has their qualities. And a defense of Connor Cody and James Tarkowski, these are serial Premier League players who have been there and done it. And we create a hell of a lot of chances in a short period of time in the first half and the second half. And despite us not scoring, I think that's extremely encouraging. And what I said on Sunday was that I was more relieved for point because I thought Everton might go on and win this game, given the fact we'd missed so many chances. And they didn't, obviously. I think we had the ascendancy going into those final moments of the game. I thought on the point of Ream, he started very shakily against Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who looked like he'd get the better of him, but grew into it and actually had zero issues, really. So yeah, I'm really pleased. And Joe, it's actually really nice to sit here and talk about what you just spoke about in terms of the not needing of the urgency of the 3 points, that a point is fine and we could just sit and take it. As opposed to 2 years ago on SW6 Essential, where we would analyze every single minuscule moment of every single game and feel aggrieved that nothing went our way in that game. So I'm really pleased. And I said it to Dan, we're not going to be in the relegation zone in the World Cup. It's
Happy
perfect.
days.
It's brilliant.
And that's even with these 2 tough games to
Mm.
come, which we're going to talk about. But I think what you say there is true in that we don't have to. And it might come to the stage where later in the season we drop off, hopefully not. And we're then a little bit more concerned about the severity of the threat of relegation. But for the time being, if you look at the table and, you see that I think it's 1-5, drawn 4, lost 4, it just reeks of mid-table form in a good way, in terms of we're not too close to the top, we're not too close to the bottom, and we can almost just sit back and relax a little bit for now. And I'm not saying relax in general, we're not safe. The gap to the relegation zone is not ginormous. It's not unattainable for the sides below us that they can overtake us, but just keep the points ticking along. I think most Fulham fans, including us, are expecting, with a pessimistic view, 0 from the next 2 games, 0 points, purely because we're playing the top 6. United at home, we will talk about next week, is maybe a slightly more achievable goal of getting something, especially with the way they're playing at times. But, it wouldn't be a disaster if we lost both of these games, is what I'm saying. We've got ourselves in a position now where, as a very worst case scenario, we're sitting on 19 points going into the World Cup break, outside of the relegation zone, at the very worst, a little bit lower down the table. As of right now, Jack, we're in 7th place, and it's a wonderful place to be.
And what I've done right now is I've got up the table from the season we went down under Parker. We achieved only 28 points that season, finishing in 18th. We scored 27. We're already on 22 goals scored, conceded 53. Burnley finished 17th on 39 points. So, you look at the 40, I would say 40 points and we're safe.
Yeah.
Because that's still the mentality of most Fulham fans. And then let's just harp it back to 18-19, where we finished on 26 points, scored 34 goals, which of course we're only 12 goals away from doing. And Brighton finished on 36 points. So, I mean, I think because of trends of recent seasons, 40 points, as I said, that is the aim. And we're almost halfway there, honestly. And if we were to get a point up United and go into the World Cup on 20 points, we're halfway living on a prayer, honestly. So,
And Jack, by the way, I had a look at a forum earlier, as you know that I do.
Yes,
and
you're a forum merchant.
And I haven't actually checked this, so apologies if this is wrong. According to someone, they said that at this stage last season, the team that was sitting in 7th after how many games have we played? 13, 14?
We played 13, I think.
13. So 13 games. 5 wins, 4 draws, 4 losses. Yeah. So the team that was sitting in 7th at this stage of last season was Tottenham on 19 points. And when you think of it that way,
they finished 4th with 71.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that by any means, but what I'm saying is, with this amount of points at this stage of the season, the teams that normally have this amount are not the teams that you think about going down. And we are most likely going to drop off just because of the nature of this league and the competition that we face. But a wonderful start, and it just gives us so much leeway. Points on the board, as we've always said, are so much better than games in hand or games remaining. Bag your points early. There's less to play for.
I saw a video on YouTube from some sort of footballing podcast that the title was "Can Fulham Get Europe?" And I don't think that's a conversation I want to be having at this current moment in time. I think it's just enjoy where we are right now and enjoy the World Cup. And if it comes to it, then we'll have that discussion. But Joe, it's time to preview Manchester City, and there is a pot for the Saturday 3 p.m. games. There's quite a few. I think there's 3 or 4. There's a 600 guaranteed payout for this one, a £3 entry. As always, this video is sponsored by BetMate. We really appreciate their support on the channel. Joe, would you like to talk through your team?
Yeah, let's do it. And we'll go on to speak about the Man City game. But, I mean, as optimistic as I'd love to be, I also want to win some money. So I've gone for 2 Man City players in there, as you can see. We don't know, and we'll speak about it in a bit, if Haaland is fit. But I've got him in there for now. Remember, on BetMate, you can change your team up to, I believe, 5 minutes before the game starts. So you can check the team. And if not, you can put Mitrovic in there, of course. Meslier in goal against Bournemouth, which is a good fixture. It'll be interesting to see if Leeds can take the form from that Liverpool game. Ben Mee scored a fantastic bicycle kick the other day, and they're playing Forest, so I've put him in there. And I've got the Brighton double up as well, because they're playing Wolves. Pereira I've also got in there because I think that we can hurt Man City, and we'll speak about it in a minute. And if we're going to hurt them, it wouldn't surprise me if it was from a set piece. But Jack, what have you gone with?
Yeah, quite similar, but slightly different. Let's go. I've actually captained Meslier because I feel like Leeds could keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth, which will of course give me a lot of points. He had a really impressive performance against Liverpool. I've also gone with Ben Mee at the back for Brentford, probably their best defender. Scored a great goal at the weekend. I haven't gone for Dunk. I've gone for Adam Webster. Wolves v Brighton's a really interesting game for me. I mean, incredibly impressive performance for Brighton last week, and I wonder whether they can continue that against a Wolves team who are really struggling for goals and points. KDB, you've got to have in there. Paulinho, of course, for Fulham. He could be key for us. I've actually gone with Ivan Toney as my vice. Away at Nottingham Forest, I think Brentford could have a field day, given Forest's result at the weekend. And I've also gone for Leandro Trossard. What a player Trossard is, honestly. So good at what he does. And like I said, Wolves are in trouble against Brighton at the weekend. Obviously, if they don't get a result, they could be in trouble in the Premier League. But yes, that is our teams. Let's talk the Man City game. And me and Dan on Sunday were sort of coming around to maybe us potentially going there and getting something. You never know. What do you think?
I mean, here's the thing. Look, this is the hardest fixture on the calendar all season. Better sides than us have gone there and been convincingly beaten, home and away, by Man City in this season, in last season, the year before that, etc. There's no expectation. I think we're all just wanting the scoreline to be respectable. If we can get something, that'd be unbelievable. They have shown deficiencies. You know, Aston Villa got a point against them. Newcastle, who have obviously been very impressive, they also got a point against them. And Liverpool beat them. And Liverpool, as we know, are not hugely impressive. I think the way to get something against Man City is quite simply, don't completely stand off them and give them all the respect in the world. You have to be physical and you have to be quick on the break. And I think we can do both of those things. So for that reason, of course, we've got a chance. We do have to shift our style of play slightly. You know, we can't go at them as we did against Everton, because on the break, I think they would score multiple times. And Haaland being missing would be a fantastic boost. But Leicester showed the other day, you know, they put 5 at the back. They kept it very compact at the King Power Stadium. And in the first half, they limited Man City to basically nothing by barely leaving their own half. Dead ball, De Bruyne free kick. Unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, I recommend looking it up because it was just superb. And that was it. That won them the game. And I think the thing with Man City is their philosophy is that they will do the same moves over and over again. It's very choreographed. It can almost look a bit robotic, but they're so good at it that they believe that at some point during the 90 minutes, they will break you down. And I don't think we can keep them out. No chance. And that's not a disservice to our defence, who were good again on Saturday. It's just how good they are. For that reason, we've got to try and, you know, we can't just be penned in our own box. We have to give it a go. I'd be happy with anything respectable here. I'm not going into it expecting a result. But what about you, Jack? I mean, you mentioned you spoke about it with Dan on Sunday. But for me, don't do anything silly. Don't get anyone suspended for United game. Let's try and nick something. Not the end of the world if we don't, is my point.
Bobby Reid is out.
Bobby Reid is out.
He can't play.
And we've got Harrison Reed, Mitrovic, and Kenny Tete all on 4 yellows.
Damn. Frustrating. But actually, Bobby Reid being out isn't the worst thing in the world, despite him being a fantastic player, brilliant servant to the club already this season and previous seasons. Kenny Tete did come back in off the bench on Saturday. So you just imagine that Kenny will just slot in at right back. Happy day if we have a natural right back at right back. Our approach to this game is interesting because we played them last season and actually scored really early. Yeah. And you know, game management probably wasn't great after we scored. You're most vulnerable when you just score, and obviously we conceded very, very quickly afterwards, and we lost the game. conceding the second goal was very, very poor from our point of view. I think the header from Stones. But I actually am quite confident that we won't get embarrassed.
Yeah.
It'd be upsetting if we would come away with a 4 or 5-0 defeat. And I don't think with the way in which we're playing at the moment, that's going to happen. Both teams we've got to play for the rest until the World Cup. Man City play midweek tomorrow against Sevilla in the Champions League, albeit they're already through. They'll rest some players. It'll be fine for them. Manchester United play Thursday against Villa in the Carabao Cup. There could be something in that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So we've got more rest time than they do. Joe, I'm expecting us to lose this game. I mean, come on, it's Manchester City. If Haaland's back, then be thrilling to see him play. In fact, I'm very, very excited to see him, watch him in real life. That's just as a lover of football, I think anyone can appreciate that. The fact of the matter is he's on great form this season. But if we can keep him quiet, if we can keep City quiet, damage limitations, that would be ideal. I think we will score, and I think we'll score more than one.
Okay.
Which doesn't necessarily mean we're going to win the game. We could lose this by 3-2, 3-1, 4-2, 4-1, similar to what we've seen in previous years gone by at the Etihad. Gun to my head, score prediction 3-1 to Manchester City.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Really?
I was torn between 2-1 and 2-0, sorry, and 3-1, but I think we'll score. My team, well, I would have put him in anyway, but the first change I'd make is Kenny Tete in. Nothing against Bobby Reid if he was available. I'd have probably played him further forward, in fact, and kept him in the teams. He's so hardworking. I'm thinking that would potentially be my only change. It would be Tete in for Bobby Reid. I would want the midfield three to be the same. I would want Reid sitting a little bit deeper, like directly next to Palhinha as a double pivot, with Pereira a little bit more advanced, slightly differently to how it was on Saturday, when obviously it's just Palhinha sitting and the other two are almost a bit more free. Willian, I want to have in there because I think that he's a real asset, especially on in the box. I think he's going to be one of our best finishers. Cabano didn't have his best game, I didn't think, on Saturday, but I would leave him in there because I think he's got a bit of trickery. And I also think that he works hard. So I wouldn't want to bring Dan James back in due to, I think the others' work rate are better. I wouldn't want to bring Wilson back in for the same reason, and he doesn't look 100% sharp yet. I'm sure he will be soon. So I think that would be my only change, Jack. What about you?
You know what? As you were saying that, I was sort of agreeing with everything you were saying, and I was going to say bring Dan James in, but then again, you have 5 subs, and if there is a situation where the game is level, Lopetegui to Wolves, maybe from John Percy. Sorry, whenever John Percy gets on my phone, it takes all my attention away. Dan James off the bench for me. At some stage in the season, at some stage of the game, if the game is on a knife edge and we've got that pace on the break, bring him in. In my opinion. The one change, Kenny Tete in for Bobby D. Cordova Reid, of course, couldn't play anyway. So the way in which we play, Harrison Reed with Paulinho snapping at heels and trying to close people down, there is a chance that I think if we were to create chances, of course, I think we will, they will come on the break.
Yeah.
And how we utilize the break. Because City play a high line, could get in behind them. We don't have blistering pace in terms of Mitrovic, but it's utilizing the likes of Willian, Cabano, Pereira with his trickery. There are ingredients in this Fulham team that can get at Manchester City.
And depending on who they play at centre-half as well, I mean, I think Stones is obviously class, but if it was Ake and Akanji, players like that, I would fancy Mitrovic to beat them in the air, and I'd fancy him to create himself chances and hold it up well. If it was Stones and Diaz, that's maybe a slightly different proposition. But we mustn't forget that Mitrovic's goal against Portugal in the last minute, Ruben Diaz, for Serbia to take them to the World Cup. I hope that he's having flashbacks of that on Saturday if Mitrovic peels to the back post. But look, we're both expecting a tough game. We're both expecting a defeat, as are most Fulham fans. But There's a great, not including me, sadly, but there's a great travelling contingent, including yourself, Jack, that are going up to the Etihad despite the train strikes. And fingers crossed that we get at least something to shout about.
Yes, I think there are chances for us. I really do. And Man City are in a title race with Arsenal. Arsenal are forcing their hand, really. And so they're going to have to play a strong team and put in a strong performance to beat them and get to top of the league, beat us and go top of the league, depending on Arsenal's result.
Yeah.
It's a proud moment for me on Saturday because it's my first out of London working game. I'm very, very excited to see what that will entail. Hopefully, 3 points. Would you believe it? I mean, it would be extraordinary. And I'm sure there'd be a very, very excitable Jack and Joe show next week if we were to pull that off. Joe, thanks so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jack. Thanks everyone for watching. And if you're going, or even if you're not, enjoy the game on Saturday.
One last thing before we go. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and that red button's still there, just click it, please. We really want to get to 5K. And Joe, I haven't quite discussed this with you off air yet, but during the World Cup, obviously there's no Fulham. I'm going to really push hard to try and get a guest or two on a Jack and Joe show and talk Fulham of old while we enjoy the World Cup. Let's just see what happens. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Jack.
Right, guys, enjoy City away, be sensible or not, and come on Fulham.